What's up, guys, and thank you for tuning in. Today is more talk of Chucky, and today we are discussing episode 4, Just Let Go. This episode's really fun, really exciting. It's one of the episodes that's kind of on the shorter end of things, but I really still think it does a really good job. This episode does also mark our mid-season through the first season, so it does a pretty good job of setting up what we can kind of expect to see, at least the chaos realm of things, in the second half. We still haven't seen anybody like Tiffany, Nika, Andy, or Kyle, but we have some promises that they're going to be coming in episode 5, and probably rarely soon after. I know that at least Tiffany's going to be appearing in episode 5. So the fact that they're really able to keep this story engaging and fruitful and just really fulfilling, and we still haven't even gotten to the nitty-gritty of the OG characters returning, is really exciting when, again, we're already halfway through. And thankfully, this episode does give us a lot to chew on, so let's go ahead and dig into it. The episode cold opens on some B-roll. You have some sirens flashing, ambulances going by, just some real dreary, dismal stuff going on. It's just trying to pick up the tone because we really don't see any of the actual chaos of the fire or any of the kids, like, leaving the house from the end of the last episode. Which at first I was kind of jarred by, but it makes a lot of sense, you know, that they would do this because, I mean, it is a TV show, and budget-wise, you can have the big ol' house fire spectacle, and you can split it up, you know, have the episode end with that, so you don't have to show the actual end result of that and the chaos of everybody leaving the fire. And they take advantage of that because that's where we open up. So we have Jake kind of walking up to the hospital, kind of lackadaisical. It kind of looks like he's almost trying to prepare an act, kind of get the bad news because he pretty much knows that something really bad happened. But as he walks in, it kind of gets the idea that it probably is a lot worse than he thought. He sees like his classmates kind of fucked up. He also sees what turns out to be Oliver's parents reacting to the news of Oliver being killed. And even though they show like Oliver flashing there, like being killed when they show his parents and Jake reacts to it, I think that's more for the audience because Jake really does have a genuine reaction to that later when Lexi does tell him that Oliver is dead. Because Jake's whole thing here in the opening, he's kind of going around, when he sees the other kids who were caught up in this, it seems like he has kind of more of a real sense of guilt, more of a like, holy shit, how far did this go? He goes around, he sees Junior and gets pretty upset about seeing Junior. He sees Devin and just seems like really elated the fact that Devin is okay. Again, I don't think Jake figured that everybody else would be caught up in this. He ends up coming across Caroline as well. She set up in her own like real nice room and everything. She was asleep when the house went up, so she got some really bad smoke inhalation, and she's currently hooked up to a ventilator. And as he's muling around there, Lexi actually kind of surprises him, and he's like, oh, you're okay. And I think in that moment, he was, again, pretty happy to see that she was okay, like kind of glad that it didn't go as bad as he thought. Maybe he thought that, you know, maybe nobody made it out dead. And they kind of go back and forth there for a minute until she finally tells Jake, you know, actually, no, Oliver is dead. And he has a bit of a reaction to this. He actually seems a little bit, I guess sad, but I'm sure his day isn't ruined because of it. I mean, Oliver was a dick to him, like, pretty hardcore. But he's also probably not happy. I mean, it can't feel good knowing that you got the wrong guy killed. That's just never a good scenario. I do think it's funny as well that Lexi was, like, by all means, penultimately the closest person to this fire, the closest person there could have been, but all of the other kids got fucked up with smoke inhalation and like burns and everything, but she walked out completely fine. She's not admitted, she's not being checked out, she's totally fine. Like, how did she pull that off? And I do see a lot of contention about her getting away from Chucky, and this is something that I guess I just excuse. I don't think that it's an issue that she got away from Chucky, or it's too much to think that maybe she just hopped over the bed that she was like kind of pinned up between, or just hauled off and punted him square into the fire before making a run for it. It's pretty easy to assume how she got out of there. I do understand that it is jarring that she kind of just says he was surrounded by fire, but she never really states how she got out of there, but nothing I'm really concerned with. We have some really good character moments in this episode between Jake and Lexi, and I really like it because a lot of people, again, are upset because we are getting to that point to where it seems like they're going to try and redeem Lexi, try to make us try and root for her, which I'm fine with. I mean, again, these kids are 14-year-olds. This is a series, you know, yes, sure, we're rooting for Chucky, absolutely, but it's good when you root for the protagonist and the kids that are getting killed, because when they get killed or when they're in danger or anything like that, it just makes it that much more impactful. So I'm always down to actually root for the actual protagonist in horror. And she confronts Jake and is basically like, you know, why the hell is your doll trying to kill me? She knows he's alive. He confronted her, he yelled at her, he called her the C word. So cat's out of the bag, and Jake knows that, and he's under some weird pressure right here where he's kind of trying to shrug it off, but she straight up to ask him, you know, why is your doll coming after me? And he straight up has to confess, well, it's kind of because I told him to. Which in reality, in my opinion, isn't the actual truth. I mean, Jake wasn't the one saying that I want to kill her. Chucky really was the one pushing this, so I think Jake could have gotten off pretty scot-free by saying it was Chucky's idea. It pretty much was Chucky's idea. I don't really know why he's taking the full fault for this, but whatever. And after learning that Jake gave Chucky to Caroline and her with the intent to kill Lexi, she rightfully is pretty freaked out by this, pretty much has a meltdown, doesn't really know what to do, and goes to confront her parents and tell everybody, you know, Jake's doll's alive, it tried to kill me. And He pretty much cuts that off at the pass and says, no, you really don't want to do that. Because anybody that does do that, if you look into it, anybody that's told the story of Chucky or anything, they either get locked up or worse. Which what we know through watching 7 movies worth of this stuff, we know that that's pretty much what happens. You know, Andy Barclay, his mom, they all get locked up. Nika gets locked up, or worse, like Nika, gets possessed by him and becomes him. So it's pretty bad. Once you figure it out, once you're in on the secret, you're pretty much fucked. And there's also just this kid aspect to it to where they just know they can't tell the adults because the adults just won't understand. And with this being a series about a killer doll, I'm fine with that. It works because even those characters aren't believing them, even with insurmountable evidence in front of them. Like Devin later in the episode, when brings it up, even he doesn't believe that Chucky's alive. And speaking of Devin, we actually do have the next segment where Devin's mom walks in. She's doing her detective job and asking him, you know, if he's okay. He also got messed up at the party because of the fire. And she asks him if Jake or if Chucky was seen at the party. He's kind of confused, you know, why are you asking me about Chucky? I don't really understand. And I really like this because I like that at the same exact time, we have 2 different sets of characters, or, you know, just different characters in the know-how of Chucky. We have Jake and Lexi who know that Chucky's alive, but we still have characters like Detective Evans who has a pretty weird idea about Chucky, but is still putting it all together. And I don't think that she thinks it's Chucky, but I do think that she thinks that something is up with him because, you know, she interviewed the woman with the razor blade apple, and then now this, it's pretty, you know, known to her that there might be something up with this doll, and she's pretty much suspecting Jake. She tells Devin that Oliver actually did not get killed in the fire like everybody suspects, that he was actually killed, he was stabbed. And Devin, oddly enough, gets like pretty excited about this because he's the true crime guy, so he's like, oh my god, like there's a killer out there, like that's exciting. I don't know why that's exciting to him. That kid got killed like the other room away from him. And while Devin's mom has talked to him, we see this shot of something creepy. Again, it reminds us of young Charles in the beginning of the series, kind of peering around corners, walking around because, you know, he's about 3 feet tall. And we see this thing kind of creep into the room and look and kind of breathe heavily before leaving again. We see this several times throughout the episode. We see it right here skulking on Devin. We see it also later in the episode where Lexi's talking to her parents in the hallway. It kind of sneaks up behind her. And then we also have 2 separate moments of what looks like Chucky dolls, or at least good guy dolls, running through the frame. Later in the episode, there's one that kind of runs past Lexi's peripheral and she kind of catches it. And we have another one in the scene where Junior's being sedated before a small procedure, and while he's being drugged, he sees one kind of run. Now, I like the way that's framed because that's one of the first ones that we physically see that's actually running past these doorways. So it kind of makes you think, you know, is he actually seeing that, or is that just him being drugged and him kind of freaked out? Like, what really is that? But I think through us seeing multiple of them throughout the episode, it's pretty much safe to assume that it is multiple Chuckies, and I'm really curious how this is all playing out. Like, what the hell really is going on? We go back to Jake and he's kind of moping in the hallway and he has a ball that's kind of kicked to his foot, and he looks up and it's this really creepy mom with a child in overalls and a striped shirt that keeps showing up throughout the episode, and I don't know what they are. I don't know if they are anybody or if they're just meant to be creepy. If they are just meant to be creepy, they did a pretty damn good job because I don't know, they just kept showing up and they kept focusing on them, and I just thought it was pretty unnerving. We go over and catch up with Logan and Bree, and then they also get confronted by the mayor and, you know, the first husband of Hackensack about pretty much their bad parenting. Both sets of parents are basically just going off on the other, saying, you know, you're a bad parent, no, you're a bad parent. It's just one of those moments. And it culminates in nice Devin Sawa getting just a little less nice when he decks Lexi's dad, and rightfully so. Again, he has the moment where he kind of tells him, you know, what the audience is thinking, that it's pathetic to put your son up to all this, to relive your glory days, and that's pretty much what that moment's supposed to be. That gets broken up by Detective Evans, who runs in and basically breaks the news to both sets of parents that, hey, y'all need to, like, figure it out. This is not what we need to be doing, because she tells them that Oliver didn't die in the fire, he was murdered, and, you know, so they now have to find a murder suspect. And with everything going on, you know, again with Junior and Jake and all the chaos that they seem to be surrounded by, it doesn't really look good for them, pretty much freaks everybody out. And sometime after that too, we get this really weird scene of Logan and Junior in Junior's room where he asks him, you know, like, you know, you love running track, right? Like, you love this, right? You don't love it just because I love it. You like it, right? And Junior's sitting there, like, really uncomfortable, like, yeah, of course I like it, like, sure. And Devin Sawa is like, no, I want to hear you say it. Like, you gotta say it. And I'm like, dude, there's a time and place to do this. Like, your son was just in a house fire, he's being treated in a hospital, and one of his friends just got murdered, and you know this, and you're sitting here like, come on, tell me what I want to hear. I thought that was really weird, and I think they're probably trying to call a weird parallel between Lucas and Logan with that, so real interesting stuff. I like that they're actually making the parent characters more three-dimensional, even in all their weird little motives. Now, after talking to his mom and learning that Oliver was actually murdered, and after talking to Jake, where Jake gets pretty weird about the whole thing and talking about Oliver's death, Devin actually gets on Google and does some really useful, like, research. He gets on the Chucky wiki and figures out 7, movies worth of lore. Now, in this episode, we do get more Chucky origin stuff. We get a flashback with young Charles Lee Ray. It's more of a teenage Charles Lee Ray living in a halfway home years after the murder of his parents. Young Charles here is played by a young actor named Tyler Barish, and he does really, really good in the Chucky role. I really like it, and there's a really wholesome scene online of Fiona Dorff actually coaching him in his Chucky laugh on set, and it's just really wholesome. It's one of my favorite things. He's hanging out, and he's really eccentric. He's really wired. He has a whole ton of energy. He's reading Peter Pan to a lot of the halfway home kids who are a lot younger than him, probably about 5 to 10 years younger. It kind of just shows how he's like a ringleader there. People kind of follow him. Even the woman who pretty much runs the thing, pretty much trusts his judgment on things. You get the scene where he's walking through, and there's this, of course, dick-headed custodian who kind of bumps into him, and they have a back and forth where the custodian kind of takes a mop and kind of sloshes it up on Charles's shoes, which I didn't notice this at first, but I found this on Twitter where somebody pointed it out, but Charles's shoes are red with white stripes, so they're pretty much foreshadowing his permanent plastic shoes that he will eventually have later on in life. I just thought that was a fun little visual foreshadow. It's just the small things. We see Charles hanging around at home still, and then we see him take most of those kids. He's, again, doing the Peter Pan bit, so he's taking all of the Lost Boys off to Neverland, and they're going to go find their treasure. And they're trudging through these weird shrubby woods, and then they find their treasure, which Charles has hidden for them, and it's a dead body, and it's lo and behold that dick-headed custodian who messed up his little red shoes. They succeed in their treasure hunt, and they find exactly what Charles hid for him, and it turns out to be a dead body, and it's none other than that dick-headed custodian earlier who messed up Charles's really nice red shoes. He's had his throat slashed, and there's some maggots crawling inside, and majority of the kids, rightfully so, are really freaked out. I really like the kids acting in this because they don't do anything. They don't really crack jokes. They just have this really stunned expression of they don't know what they're seeing before they just run off. I just thought it was really well done. All but one kid, one weird fucking kid who just takes a stick and starts poking at the wound and stuff. And it's a nice, wholesome moment. It's supposed to be creepily wholesome. And it succeeds because Charles comes up to him and pretty much admires the fact that this kid is not bothered and is pretty entertained by this dead body. He tells him, just like the serial killer told him as a kid, "You got guts, kid." And they have this really neat moment where he laughs and it kind of flashes the good guy doll in his face. Fun little, visual things for the audience. That's for us. It flashes forward that night. The police are at the halfway home and all the kids are in bed except for the little kid who is poking at the stick. Charles walks in the room and is basically like, "Hey, I gotta go," wakes him up from sleep and gives him a gift. He makes him promise not to tell, cross his heart, and hope to die, hands him the gift, and he opens it, and it's none other than the dick-headed custodian's severed hand. And I love this because it's really weird. Did anybody else notice that that's exactly what Chucky did at the end of Seed of Chucky? Now, at the end of Seed of Chucky, Glenn says, even for all of our differences, I know that my dad really loved me, and I do believe that. Again, I know it's weird to look into the psychosis of Chucky to think if he actually is capable of loving anybody. I don't think it's that deep, but he does have an admiration for the kid, right? I just find it really funny now that we have two separate instances in canon of Chucky giving people that he endears severed hands as a type of way of saying, I care for you, you're cool in my book. I don't know. It's really fucking weird, dude. But it has to be intentional, right? But still, Chucky runs off, he makes it off into the night, and then the woman actually runs into the room and yells at the boy who had just received the severed hand, and we find out who he is. She name drops him by Eddie Caputo. And I freaked the fuck out. I marked out for this. Of all the characters to get a reference in the year of our Lord and Savior 2021, it's Eddie fucking Caputo. Who would have thought? The writers for this episode absolutely nailed it. I know that Don was talking about his writer's room and his staff and how a lot of them really are Chucky fans and they're pretty much trying to figure out how they can apply their knowledge to the series. And I love that because I'm sure that's just somebody in the room who was like, "Oh, I have an idea for this. Let's just make this Eddie Caputo." And I love that. So now we have a backstory of that dickhead who left Charles Lee Ray to get killed in 1988. The guy who got blown up in the house. I love that. A one-off character who's never been referenced ever again now actually has an origin as a pretty much an apprentice of Charles Lee Ray, somebody who he helped become a killer the same way somebody helped him become a killer. It's weird, man. Story building. I love what this series has done with that so far. The world building and everything it's done to expand the story and not change it is just beautiful. And that's what I think Chucky is really good at as a series. It does not change its lore, it just expands. It's just the greater Chucky universe. It's it's interesting, you know, you don't see that type of care put into a greater story like that over the arcing, you know, 30 plus years. Usually they just start it over. Now back at the hospital, Lexi does end up confronting Jake and pretty much being like, look, fine if nobody's gonna believe me, and you know, if I do need help with this, fine, let's go find him, you and me, let's go figure this out. They run off, they sneak into the house that's now basically a crime scene. It's cautioned off and half of it is burned down. The entire foyer and main area that we had seen previously is now charred up and pretty much burned to shit. They're skulking through the house, and the thing that I thought was really weird was that when they were running up, I was like, you guys don't have weapons. They do end up grabbing weapons inside, but I'm like, these are definitely kids because they are not really survivalists, it seems. It's like they're just getting really lucky. They're going through the house and they're kind of giving each other shit. And then it comes to a point to where they pretty much pick the worst time possible to have it out and pretty much tell each other exactly how they're feeling. They pick the moment where they're going through a burnt house looking for a serial killer that they know is going to try and kill them, to have a personal argument that would tell him exactly where they're at. Now, luckily, Chucky isn't in the best form to actually go find them. We'll see him in a second, but I thought that was pretty bad timing on their part. Like, do this after. But she pretty much tells Jake, it's pretty fucked up that you wanted me dead, you know? I understand, you know, I might have gone too far, but you could have just talked to me, which, again, from Jake's perspective and the audience's perspective, we're probably like, oh, that wouldn't have worked, and it probably wouldn't. But at the same time, I feel like she has a point. I mean, it pretty much was, I'm seeing her do this, let me just listen to Chucky, let's just go ahead and try to kill her, which, again, maybe Jake has a point. I just thought it was a really good scene where both characters, like, morals kind of clashed, and you saw that in my opinion, I didn't feel like either of them were wrong in this moment to feel how they felt. And I feel like it's entirely fair for Jake to be like, well, it wouldn't have done anything, so I might as well have done that. And when she really heckles him, she really kind of eggs him on and hammers it home that something's really wrong with him mentally to want to do that, and he finally gets pretty pissed and asserts himself that, no, it's not because there's something wrong with me, it's because there's something wrong with you, and he's holding something in the scene. It's really tense. She kind of gets freaked out because, you know, she knows that this kid did try to have her get killed, so, you know, maybe he would try to kill her right now. So again, she probably didn't think all of this through very much. She ends up slipping and breaking the banister and falling over, and he has to catch her, and it's a pretty quick moment too. That kid's got some really good upper arm strength to be able to catch her like that and hold her there for the good like 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it was. And as soon as that happens, Chucky takes this as his opportunity to come out from the shadows. This really cool moment of the doll in one sequence turning and actually facing, and then it kind of steps out and you can see just parts of his fucked up face and what's happened to him, until he finally walks out and the entire like left side of his face is completely melted. He looks like Two-Face from Batman, and again, it kind of reminds me of Child's Play 3 Pizza Face, but it's gnarly and it's sagging, and he's got like the eyeball down here. It's all bloodshot and just hanging in the crevice of his face. It just looks disgusting. His arm's still there and everything, but it's all charred and just disgusting. So I just love the fact that we do have a brand new actual battle damaged Chucky. It's up there with the greats like the Stitch Chucky and the Pizza Face Chucky and the Melted Chucky and all of the really good ones. So I just love that. Maybe we'll get a replica of it someday. Come on, trick or treat. But he comes out and he starts egging on Jake, telling him, this is exactly what you want. Go ahead and just let go, like the episode's title. Roll credits. But he continues on and he just has this really good dialogue. I love what Chucky is saying here. I love Brad Dourif's performance in it. I just really enjoy it when he says, you know, this isn't a coincidence, this is a crossroads. And he's still quipping too. He says it's just one less vicious Karen on training wheels. It's just a really great scene of Chucky letting this girl have it, and he's really trying, it's his last ditch effort to get Jake on his side. It almost works. Again, this all happens right in the moment where Jake and Lexi were actually confronting each other, and Jake was asserting, no, I did this because I felt like you genuinely deserve to die. And here comes along Chucky saying, come on, if you really feel that way, pay the piper, have her get killed, go ahead and drop her, and I'll finish it, it's fine. And this is our moment for Jake. This is our culmination of the will Jake be a killer arc. This is where it all comes together in his conviction to renounce Chucky and state, no, I'm not like you, I'm not a killer. I love that. I love this moment for Jake. I really do. I just like the kid. Again, I have to say, as somebody who's loved Chucky for a really long time, hearing of characters coming back like Tiffany, Nika, Andy, Kyle, that's really exciting to me. Hearing about new characters and stuff, you know, especially with like Curse of Chucky is exciting, but it comes to a point to where you expect one or two of them to become important, or you expect one or two of them to really become integral or for you to like them. And that's pretty much what I was expecting with this series. I wasn't expecting to be as on board with all of these characters the way that I am with, I honestly at this point, with Lexi, with Jake, with Devin, and I'm rooting for everybody. And even though I still want Chucky to win to some degree, I still want these kids to make it out also. I don't know, I feel like it's doing a good job by making me care about these characters, but obviously I'm still here for him. And after Jake pretty much disowns Chucky, he has this great moment where he runs up. He's like, fine, I'll do it myself. And he's jumping up. They have the puppetry, or they have somebody in the costume. I don't know what they did in the scene, but just the imagery of that Chucky jumping up and aimlessly and helplessly trying to slash at Lexi's legs. It was hilarious to look at. That's the right amount of camp I want in my Child's Play series. Now, this is cut off by Detective Evans' partner coming in. They tell him to go to the house and get Chucky for Caroline. You know, they know that Caroline loves Chucky, so they're pretty much like, you know, see if he survived the fire. If so, please bring him here. And he finds Chucky, and he picks him up, and he does notice the fact that Chucky's face is melted, but holy crap, like, that's not normal. Like, it's obviously alive. That's obviously flesh. The way the eyes look, the way it's like, there's blood in there. Like, how the fuck are you not noticing this? But the dude thinks nothing of it and picks him up and just puts him in the car and takes the kids with him, and yeah, he just thinks this doll bleeding and with this burning, melting flesh is completely normal. Fine. Lexi and Jake start freaking out, but they do have to come with him because he's, you know, a police officer, and they are 14. They all end up back at the hospital. The guy ends up taking Chucky up to Caroline's room and dropping him off. But even still, he starts pilfering through and starts eating, like, almost all of her snacks, you know, because Caroline is the mayor's daughter, so she has a ton of little get-well-soon gift baskets of muffins and shit like that. He's sitting there and eating, and there's actually crumbs falling out of his mouth onto Chucky, and just, it's one of those great moments where you know what's about to happen and you're really excited for it because fuck this guy. Now, while this is happening, Lexi and Devin end up finding each other, and Devin ends up telling Lexi, you know, hey, I found out some weird stuff about Jake's doll. You know, have you ever heard about Charles E. Ray, you know, the legacy of Chucky, the guy who transferred a soul into a good guy doll? Again, he pretty much watched the Cliff Notes and the, you know, did you know facts about the Child's Play series. And without missing a beat, Lexi's like, Devin, look, I'm telling you, he's alive. And Devin's like, no, like, cool, but no. And then we go back to the detective, who's, again, still eating all of Caroline's snacks. And we got this moment that, again, got this genuine wince out of me, and I don't know why. It wasn't terribly bloody. It's just the thought of it, where Chucky ends up taking a scalpel. He throws it directly into the back of the detective while he's facing away, and the detective ends up pretty much falling backwards with the knife in his back, and as he falls, the knife rams up into his back, into his spinal cord, and paralyzes him. The first time I watched this, I had to look away when he fell. I didn't know if the knife was going to come out or anything. I don't know why. In the moment, it got me. Again, this is TV. I don't know why it got me like that, but again, I'm really glad a TV show can get me in that way. The guy's all freaked out, wondering what's happened, where Chucky walks up, tells him, you know, I hit your spinal cord. Pretty much revealing himself, as he does classically before killing the person. He ends up reaching into the biohazard bin that's right in front of him with used needles, and ends up giving him some type of cocktail of used hypodermic needles. I don't know what's in those. I don't know what would cause this, but it killed him pretty brutally. Obviously, outside of the actual puncture wounds and the bleeding and whatever else internal he actually hit, it caused him to hemorrhage out of, like, his eyes and nose and ears, and like blood out of his fingertips. Now, I'm no medical professional. I don't know what would make you hemorrhage that way, if that's what it is, but never seen somebody bleed from their fingertips from being stabbed. So you see something new every day. And just to cap the moment off, just to cap off the whole episode and pretty much what we've seen so far when trying to figure out what is Chucky's goal here. Is he really trying to plead to Jake? Is he trying to do something? Does he have a use for him? Or is he just being a dick looking for entertainment? And I think he's just being a dick looking for entertainment, because he walks up to the little girl's life support ventilator and pulls the plug. A genuine moment that had me, like, I wasn't super worried for Caroline in that moment, but I was just like, what the fuck? And I don't believe that Chucky in that moment was deliberately trying to kill Caroline, because the way everyone reacts, pretty much everyone runs into the room, and, you know, they pretty much stabilize her pretty quickly. So I think it's a situation where he wasn't trying to kill her. He was just wanting an audience for his pretty new, piece he put up in the center of the room with that detective. But if she did die, he was probably just going to count that as bonus points. But I love it, because he genuinely, I think, was just trying to get people's attention. As soon as everybody crowds in, they're freaking out about Caroline. They get her stabilized until the nurse actually notices the detective dead on the floor next to her bed. All the chaos is ensuing, and Jake, Lexi, and Devin end up running, and they can see through the big old glass window that encompasses the room until Jake actually nudges Lexi and is like, hey, look. And even though all the chaos is pretty much happening in front of and next to Chucky, he still takes this as a great opportunity to come alive, look at them. All three of them, by the way, revealing himself to Devin for the first time, and pretty much unable to deny it any further that Chucky is alive because he just revealed himself to him. All three of them stare on terrified, as pretty much they know what he's done, and he does nothing but smile, and just, that's what we end the episode on, a middle finger and a beat that actually syncs up with it. That's it, credits. And that's how you end an episode of this, man. Like, that was, it was such a good moment of, like, damn, I'm sad to see the credits, but I was like really fulfilled. Everything that Chucky was doing in this episode, it really feels like he's in his prime. He's really mastered his cadence as a fucking doll. He just knows what he's doing now. Not that he didn't before, but he's like a professional. Like, you could pay him to do this shit. And I just thought this episode was perfect for, again, what it needed to be and what it was, which is essentially the mid-season, not finale, because we don't do that. This isn't AMC. But it's his mid-season mark. Episode 4. Next episode is episode 5. We get 8 episodes. So it's really exciting. We know that next episode we will get to see Tiffany and things like that. It seems like we really will start blending in the previous lore and pretty much see how all of this plays into it, the big overarching story. I just love that they, again, have really taken the time to make us care about these new characters, all of the kids, you know, and all of, the Devin'S Mom Walks, all of those guys, and still the old characters. It's really easy, I would think, to get lost in the nostalgia bait and really market it off that and make the show pretty much that. But it seems here that we have a clean split. We're going to have an actual 4 episodes introducing our new story, and then the next 4 will be pretty much reintroducing how it plays into the old story and how it all comes together in the big overarching Chucky TV series story. And I'm actually getting to the point to where I'm not watching the ads or the clips before the episodes, because I mean, they're only like 40 minutes long, 46 minutes long, and they're each week. So let's just figure out what it is when I watch it. And I love that I'm at that point to where I'm just loving it so much where I don't need more. You don't need to sell me on it because I'm already here each week. So for me personally, I'm loving the Chucky TV series. It's exceeded my expectations. The first half has been fantastic, so I will be right back here for episode 5. Let's see if the second half is just as good. I'm sure it is, but still, we're going to check it out and we're going to talk about it. So what did you guys think about episode 4 or the entire season up to this point? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know your favorite moments, your favorite kill so far, whatever it is. Let's talk some Chucky. Feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it, and feel free to subscribe to Fizz TV for more Chucky coverage coming at you in the near future. And until that next time, guys, my name is Fizz, and that's been some talk of Chucky.